What does Koskinen have in common with Jasper Avenue?
I don't know. What does Koskinen have in common with Jasper Avenue?
Way too many holes.
Like potholes?
Yeah, I guess that doesn't really work. What does Koskinen have in common with Swiss cheese?
Hello, welcome to Hat Trick. I am Jordan Dowler-Coltman. I am joined, as always, by my brother Braydon Dowler-Coltman. Braydon, how are you doing?
I'm grumpy.
I know you're a little bit grumpy. The Oilers lost. We're not going to talk about the Oilers this week, probably for good reason. We will probably get back to them in a week or so. But there are some other less fun, but equally important news stories that we do wanted to get to this week. Two in particular, and then we're going to mix it up. Our third topic today is not hockey related, but that's all we'll say for now. Let's get right to it. So here's topic one. This week, we will pick up a story that we left last week, which is the National Women's Hockey League. Last week, obviously, we had a very deep dive conversation into the Barstool Sports controversy and sort of a bit more of a down week. Very down week, and even more disappointing as the story's next chapter for the National Women's Hockey League. They were in their bubble in Lake Placid until I believe it was Tuesday that they began getting too many COVID cases to safely be able to continue, and the entire tournament had to be canceled. So that ends what was a tournament growing momentum for women's hockey. It's disappointing because it happened before the semifinals, and the final was set to take place live on national television in the United States. NBC Sports was just moving in to be prepared to broadcast those three games, I guess. And so obviously disappointing in that. Braydon, considering everything and the fact that we've talked about them now back-to-back weeks, how do you feel the state of women's hockey? Where do they find themselves this week compared to last week and even before that? Where are we at here?
Well, they find themselves missing out on a championship for the second year in a row, as it happened last year. I think their finals fell on the weekend that everything shut down, and they weren't able to finish. Now, obviously, a championship or a final game isn't as important as everybody's health, but I think we find ourselves in a situation here where, we're weighing the health and safety of these players and these professionals to what all the fans want, which is, a final, an outcome of the accumulation. Obviously, this was already a shortened, it was just like a tournament, right? Like, it was probably less than 10 games for these teams.
Yeah,
it's definitely disheartening.
I think the minimum games played by any team were 3, and then several other teams were able to get a couple more in. But yeah, disappointing to say the least. And as I said,
even finish off
and they were just in a position to set up themselves for a great bit more national attention. Especially in the United States. Some positives, I suppose, on the side of it. The Professional Women's Players Association, which is a different organization headed by Gina Hefford, which was already established prior to this tournament starting, but has now been able to sort of pick up from there. It's a Players Association, obviously made up of Canadian and American women, both from the national teams and from these professional leagues that are all trying to get themselves going. They have already announced last week 2 partnerships with NHL teams. The New York Rangers were the first one, and in a sort of twist of fate, they announced this partnership mere hours before the league had to cancel this bubble. They will host a women's showcase game at Madison Square Gardens on February 28th. So that will get a little bit of attention, which is good. And then the Toronto Maple Leafs also announcing today that they have a partnership with the same organization for an yet undetermined date to do another women's hockey showcase. So it's nice to see that the NHL teams are stepping in a little bit. That's something we kind of mentioned last week. Just to sort of tie that to this, I wonder, when you look at the struggles this league had in the bubble, obviously there has to be a deep dive into why this didn't work. Was it simply that it wasn't enough of a bubble to protect the players? Was it simply a lack of funding or organizational?
Resources, yeah.
What was it that made, because clearly, a bubble model should have protected them from this exact outcome. And it's clearly either the players weren't following the protocols or the protocols weren't strong enough. What do you think?
Well, it's hard to say. It's definitely a smaller organization with, or league I mean, it doesn't have the resources that the NHL, NBA, some of those larger leagues have.
Right.
It's good to see that some of these teams are stepping up to be, to alleviate some of that moving forward. But I do think that it probably comes down to those resources and what they're
Yeah, I mean, because
actually
otherwise
able
it's
to do.
a catastrophic mismanagement if it isn't simply the fact that they didn't have the money to do it properly. Because if they had the resources to do it properly and they just mishandled it, then it's a catastrophe on so many levels, management wise. And there definitely need to be some serious conversations about that. This, like you said, this is a bit of a sort of silver lining, I suppose, this relationship. It makes me wonder, though, and I'm sure this conversation has been happening, especially after the Canadian Women's League collapsed a couple years ago. Finances and the resources necessary to make even a small professional sports league work are so high in our modern world. It makes you wonder, though, like, do these leagues need to seek a bigger relationship with the NHL the way that the WNBA does? I know we talked about this last week as well, but it really looks like the NHL really should be the one stepping up here, and individual teams are doing it. That's great. But it's like, can you imagine if you were able to take every NHL team in Canada and just give them a satellite women's team and say, like, it's the Oilers women's team and the Canucks women's team. They play on the Saturday. They play a Saturday matinee before a Saturday night game. Season ticket holders get a cheaper season ticket package they can add on to their current package. You have the emotional relationship fans already have to their NHL teams built into the brand. I mean, I think that there are probably a lot of
it's a cool
hockey
idea.
fans who would buy into that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. I think what it comes down to, though, is those, like we said, with the resources, they need more funding, and beyond just the partnerships and the allyships with those other leagues, you need some more of these sponsors coming in saying, we support women's hockey, we support what this stands for, and we support the fact that this is on the rise, and we need it. We need more of this.
Hey, do you or someone you know own a small business? Are you looking to grow or to reach new customers? Hey, why not let us help? Hattrick is looking for unique brands, businesses, and products to advertise on our show. You can find out how we can help spread the word about your business by contacting us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Okay, on to topic 2.
All right, Jordan, we're about a month into the NHL season. We have now seen 26 games postponed. None of them canceled so far. We talked about the Women's Hockey League and their cancellation of their league. What happens with the NHL if these postponements keep happening?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's hurting a few divisions and a few teams pretty significantly right now. I guess in some ways, the way the league broke the season up, or broke the teams up into these divisional pods, I'm not going to call them bubbles because they're not, but pods, where they only play each other throughout the entire season, has mitigated some of the scheduling damage. I'm sure that there are a small team of scheduling aficionados in the basement of the New York headquarters somewhere who are madly running matrix boards trying to figure out how on earth they're going to get all these games played. Like you said, 26 games so far. 8% of the Dallas Stars and the Carolina Hurricanes games so far have been postponed. Most teams should have played around 10 to 11 games by this point. All of the teams in Canada have played about that number. I mean, there is some scheduling number, but by that, we're about a fifth of the way in, as you say. Yeah, it's a big question mark. This is exactly what we worried would happen. This is exactly what people kind of said would happen, like we saw with baseball and like we saw with the NFL. Postponements were kind of inevitable because this disease strikes anyone and everyone, and when it does, it moves very quickly through groups of people that are close together. Well, that is the epitome of a hockey team. They train together, they play together, they're right on top of each other on the ice, and in doing so, they also are transferring it team to team. The NHL has said they are comfortable moving the playoffs so far up until the beginning of the playoffs, up until about the middle of May.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll tell you the one team that's suffering, and that's my fantasy hockey team.
Yeah, I've
been on a roll, and yet I'm projected to win a week, and all of a sudden, half my team gets decimated by postponements, and I don't know what to do. I can't just drop guys because they're going to become available to other people when they're game.
No, totally, and that's a factor with all of
course,
this. As a fan of the sport, that it changes the way you look at you watch the sport. It changes the way we think about the sport, the statistics of it. We haven't even got into how the history of this sport will be affected by this weird season. You've got a guy like Alexander Ovechkin who's chasing Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record, and he's only got a few more games that he can play. A few more years, I should say, that he can play based on his age.
Just a couple more
but
games.
This is a season that he won't get a full crack at. But again, safety first. That is obviously the most important thing. Do you think that if this continues, the NHL is going to have to start to reevaluate their strategy? Or are we just so far down the rabbit hole?
I think they are reevaluating, and they're going to continue to. You're right. Whether or not they're going to just say, we need to stop and we need to wait until we're even further down this thing. I don't know. I mean, I just don't know. There's so many things that we don't even know with the virus and the variants and the vaccinations, and who's going to be able to access that, and at what point are fans going to be able to get back into the building. I think it's great that the league has done everything that they can. I mean, knock on wood, to make sure that things are healthy.
I think the only
players
thing,
are healthy and safe.
I think the only thing, though, that we really do have to start, we're getting towards the place of having to start to think about is the integrity of the game. Because you have, I mean, the Vegas Golden Knights played a game with their general manager as their head coach. I mean, you're going to start getting to places where some uncomfortable decisions are going to have to be made. We're not there yet, but it feels like you can kind of feel the tension growing, let's say. Thank goodness it hasn't affected the Canadian teams. That's a good thing, but it has started to touch the other three divisions, and one of them, I mean, Dallas and Carolina and I think Florida too have all had a significant amount of games postponed.
Buffalo. Yeah. Well, and I think when you start looking into the future of how it's going to affect the league and other leagues, the collective bargaining agreement's going to have to take into consideration the fact that they're going to have to change. I mean, salary caps are going to change. There's going to be a lot of different changes that we see moving forward when it comes to how the NHL and other leagues continue to navigate this situation.
There you go. We'll leave it at that for now. That's topic 2. Okay, topic 3 this week, not hockey related, but it only happens once a year, so we thought it would be fun to do Super Bowl picks. There's 2 of us today. We didn't find a third wheel for this episode, which is fine. Makes it a little bit quicker and easier because there's only 2 teams playing, believe it or not. That's how the Super Bowl is played. They don't do 3 teams at once, although I have to tell you, it would be a lot more fun if they did.
I would love to see that.
Just 3 teams? Maybe that's what the XFL should do.
Yeah,
3 triangle-shaped field.
No. 4, so that it's like an X, literally an XFL.
There you go.
So you have
2
to try
football
to score
fields
on each
crossing
side.
each other. You're not actually playing 2 of the teams. You're only playing 1 team, but there's 2 games going on simultaneously. So everyone running across the middle just crashes into each other.
3 teams. You figure it out.
With an X-shaped field?
That's right.
All right. Well, we've solved the XFL with the 4 minutes remaining in topic 3.
What more is there to know?
Let's do our Super Bowl picks. Obviously, I shouldn't have to set this up because the game is this episode will be live Sunday morning. You'll either listen to it Sunday morning, which will be before the Super Bowl, or you'll listen to it after. Either way, you can judge our picks.
Or during.
Super Bowl, or during, if the Super Bowl is not a great game, you can listen to this podcast during it.
You can watch it and consider what the X might look like as the game's going on.
Okay, now we have 3 minutes and 30 seconds for this topic. Here we go. We have Tom Brady, the Buccaneers, Tampa, if you will. And he is, 40? He's like 72 years old. How old is the guy? 43? Anyway, Tom Brady in his 10th Super Bowl, attempting 7 championships. That puts him ahead of Wayne Gretzky's 4 championships. It puts him ahead of Michael Jordan's 6 championships. He's obviously the GOAT in the NFL. Tom Brady, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes looking to repeat after winning last year. Who do you have, Braydon?
I mean, it's hard to pick anyone that isn't the reigning champion if they're, going back to back. But I don't see the GOAT not winning this one. I feel like Tom Brady's got even more up his sleeve, and he's gonna pull this one out.
Okay, so Braydon will take the Buccaneers.
No. I pick Tom Brady. I'm not picking the Buccaneers. I'm picking Tom Brady. Tom Brady's gonna win.
Okay. All right. Tom Brady will win, which I guess by defeat, by default, I should say.
That's right.
The Buccaneers he'll take them along with him.
Yeah.
It would give him 7. It's impossible really to bet against Tom Brady. Anyone who's ever done it has looked like a fool.
You can't bet against the guy.
I'm going to do it, and here's why. Patrick Mahomes is next in line, right? He may never be Tom Brady. He will probably never get to 10 Super Bowls. That's a very hard thing to do. But the fact that he's already going to his second back-to-back Super Bowl with a team that has been so dominant and so strong,
that's the thing.
There are a lot of things going against them. And I will admit that they are playing in Tampa Bay. They only arrived on Friday because of COVID.
Yeah, that's the first time that's ever happened, is that the Super Bowl home team is happening.
You're about a week late on that. I said about a week ago that anyone who told me that they had you have 4 or 5 days after Tampa Bay won to tell me that, because it's the most over talked about thing with the Super Bowl.
I think that's so fascinating. What an anomaly. Sure. How many teams are there, and how many times does the Super Bowl go to that that
it's
city?
Been played in Tampa Bay 7 times.
Yeah, anyway, but how many times has Tampa Bay been in the finals?
Fair enough. Anyway, this is my pick. I get to talk about my pick. All right. Tampa Bay is a very good football team. They have a very old quarterback. Kansas City is a very good football team. They have a very young quarterback. They have a very young offensive line, defensive line, and receiving core. They are going to attack. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, you never bet against Tom Brady, but you also never bet against Patrick Mahomes. Not right now, not when he's at his peak. But hopefully it's a good game. I did hear that the NFL is going to do a fair bit of content, probably during their pregame, to honor the victims of COVID, to make sure that is a big part of the storyline here. Obviously, there are going to be some fans in the stands because they have rules about that.
33,000.
Yeah, but I also have heard rumors that the NFL has made sure that the majority of those fans are first responders. So that would also be a lovely tribute if that is something that is that rumor is true. So here's hoping that's the case. Here's hoping everyone stays safe. We also heard that Kansas City apparently had a barber come into their headquarters to cut some hair so that the players would look great for the game. And then they found out while he was midway through the first person's hair that his COVID test had come back positive. So they got him out of there. So you also want to look while you're doing your Super Bowl bingo of all of the weird things that happen for the Kansas City player whose hair has been half cut.
Yeah, half done hairdos.
That is our show for today. Thank you for listening. We hope that you have a safe and enjoyable Super Bowl Sunday. No parties, no super spreader events, just Super Bowl enjoyment. And we also hope that you'll listen to us next week. Thanks, Brady.
Woo!
That's Hatcher. Hattrick is a member of the Ordinary Podcasting Network. It's produced every week by Jordan Dowler Coleman and Braydon Dowler Coleman. You can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thanks for listening. Let's try to keep this to 5 minutes. Ready?
I think we've been pretty good for 5 minutes. Mom likes the idea that every episode we keep saying, we'll stick to the time next time.
That's funny.